You're familiar, of course, with the Benedict Option, right? So this idea that folks today who are going to live their faith and not lose their faith are folks who make conscious, intentional, determined decisions and actions to come together to live their lives as a protection against the corrosive and toxic effects of the wider culture.
Yeah.
And I've found that's what I've found in my own life. When 4 years ago, we uprooted our family and moved from the Seattle area over to the Spokane Coeur d'Alene corridor, it was precisely because we felt like the house was on fire, right? There was a fire at the house, and it wasn't in the barbecue. You weren't just enjoying hamburgers and the barbecue. No, the house was on fire. And unless you took serious action, you were going to lose the faith of your kids. And that's not an easy message. It's not an easy message when most people are still barbecuing.
Yeah.
To quote Father Tom, this is not business as usual. This is not time for business as usual Christianity. Half measures won't get it done. These are Father Tom phrases, right? That's what it seems to me when I talk about heroic efforts. Half measures is a way of losing your kids' faith.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two reasons why people incline towards half measures. One is just the weakness of the flesh, laziness, whatever. Fear. How can I handle this anyway? I'm just going to ignore it, pretend it's okay. But I think there's two things in particular. I think unless people really encounter the Lord and experience the Lord's love and his kindness and his power, it's very, very hard to get motivated about helping other people to know him. But there's also something else. There's a worse virus in the church than COVID. It's the virus of universalism. You know, I'd say if you describe how many Catholics look at the world today, describe it like this. Broad and wide is the way that leads to heaven, and almost everybody's going that way. Narrow is the way that leads to hell. Hardly anybody's going that way. The trouble with looking at reality that way is it's just the opposite of what Jesus himself says. Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, Jesus says, broad and wide is the way that leads to destruction, and many are traveling that way. Narrow is the door that leads to life, difficult the road, and few are finding it. Jesus doesn't want there to be few who's finding it. Jesus doesn't want there to be many people heading to destruction, but he's saying this is the reality. Unless you break with the culture, unless you break with the world, unless you crucify your flesh, unless you resist the devil, you will end up in destruction. And so the reason why I think a lot of people aren't able to take action about the salvation of their families is they sort of have this back of their mind presumption that, well, we don't really need to get too intense about this, and they'll be okay, and they're not serial killers, and eat, drink, and be merry, go to prestigious colleges because tomorrow we're all going to heaven. Not true. So I think people need to wake up to the biblical worldview that there really is a heaven, that there really is a hell, and it really matters what we believe and how we live. And this culture is compelling us to accept what God calls serious sin as normal, and it's not normal, and it's gravely wrong. And we're being particularly attacked in the area of marriage and sexuality. And unless we really get clear about what the truth is in these areas, we're going to be badly misled, and our life is going to run into misery, and we're going to be endangering our eternal salvation. So we got to get our kids into environments where they can see marriage and sexuality lived out in a good, wholesome way, and where they can be with other families that are moving in that direction too, where there can be an articulated defense of the faith, an articulated analysis of the lies of the enemy and the lies of the culture. But I think one of the reasons why people are lazy is they don't really believe that their children's salvation is at stake, and they really presume that everybody's going to go to heaven, or almost everybody's going to go to heaven. So I think we need to recover the biblical worldview.
Yeah, it's what's at stake, right? What's at stake in our lives? I'm personally of the opinion that we're already experiencing calamity. Like, the culture of America is, this wider society of America is still so full of abundance at a material level that it's veiling the degree to which calamity and destruction have already hit us. And
No, it's true. It's true. There's so much misery and so much chaos and so much pain in culture. You know, under the beautiful facades that people throw up, underneath it, it's like a mess. Yeah.
Yeah.